morning, love. It's going to be a great day and a great week. I'm your host, Ariel Chanel, and as you know, it's my favorite day of the week, being here with you all, starting out the week, just talking about all things that are great and positive and joyful and loving and really changing the way we look at the week. And today, I have a guest with me. As you can see, I'm not by myself. If you're listening to this, you'll be able to hear my guest in a moment. But before I get ahead of myself, I have to start with my thankfulness the way that I do every week. And my thankfulness is twofold. First, I have to thank my friend Michelle, because without her, this moment wouldn't be possible, because it's Michelle that introduced me to this wonderful man and his wife, and I got to know them a little bit more and listening to their podcast, and I just knew, I was like, I gotta have him on. I gotta have him on the show. So first, thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for introducing me. And second, my thankfulness goes out to Mr. Keith Maskel, who is our guest for the day. He is the host of Living a Triggered Life podcast with his wife, Roxanne Mascoll, who is amazing in her own right. And I'm pretty sure I got to get her on the show herself one day, because I love Roxanne. I love Keith. I love them both. And I love the energy that they have. Keith is an artist, a fellow artist like myself, fellow creative. He's a sneakerhead. I'm not there yet, but I'm learning. I really am. I'm trying to learn more and more and more about the sneaker world, because there's so much with that, you know. But man, if you all just get a moment on your own to get to know Keith and really dig into who he is and his story, I know you'll fall in love the same way that I fell in love with him and his wife. So without talking anymore, Keith, thank you so much for joining, for being a part of Good Morning Love this week. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you and your presence.
Thank you so much for having me. Big shout out to Michelle, jingle, because she is just an amazing person, and it's been a pleasure, to be honest, to meet with you and just kind of, vibe, so when you ask me, I'm like, yeah. I mean, some people, like, they'll ask me, I'll be like, nah, if the vibe's not right or whatever, but I'm saying, the vibe's right with you, and you're just a beautiful spirit, and it's pure, you know what I'm saying, and there's a lot of love that you give, and so, you ask, and I came, so.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Thank you. I appreciate it again. And I want the people to know a little bit more about you from your mouth. So I know I said the basic little bit of spiel about who you are,
yeah.
But in your own words, who is Keith Maskel?
Oh my gosh. I'm a lot. I'm an actor. First and foremost, an artist and a creator. I am a sneakerhead, a mental health advocate, and I am the founder of the Triggered Project, and we are shattering the silence and nurturing the healing of Black and brown male survivors with the use of art. And we're doing it in 3 different ways. Using my art to help heal people. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse myself. And, on this way through my journey of healing, I guess it found me, so to speak. And it was important for me to figure out a way to use my art to speak to it. The abuse is disrupted in a lot of ways where I was going, and just in terms of my career and finding my authentic self in a lot of ways. And I think I got to a point where, and I'll jump back to talk more about the project, but I think I just got myself to a point where I was in a really dark place. I was in a really, really dark place. Boundaries were not where they should have been. And, my hurt little boy was running things clearly. And I had to do something, right? Put myself, my beautiful wife, Roxanne, I put myself in harm's way. And, it was time. It was more than time for me to start really, really trying to deal with the fact that I had been abused, the fact that it was a family member, the fact it was 2 family members, and that I was, even though I was doing a lot of great things, no question, but there's still a part of me that was dark. And, I had to figure out what my wellness package was, all the things that really made me happy and stuff. But also, I went to therapy and was lucky to find someone who fit with me and was preaching about, being authentic and how can I show up? How can I be a better person in general? How can I speak my truth? How can I be a better husband and a better friend and a better artist? And, that was just a big turning point to run into a project that was dealing with sexual abuse and us, me getting involved, grabbing Roxanne, because she's a psychotherapist, social worker. I'm like, look, it's something we can work together on. And then it just started to kind of grow. But it's interesting to ask the question of who I am. I'm a Bayesian. I love to laugh. And I love to be around people who are giving so I can give back. I live out loud in some ways quietly. But I also am someone who's still on his journey towards healing and is challenged daily to continue to be that authentic self that I've started to figure out in a lot of ways. But I'm a lover of laughter. I'm a lover of hair and cutting hair and fashion. Sneakers and creating and giving people voice who haven't had a voice. A believer of young people, most definitely. Believer of Black and brown people, no question. But I come from good. If you good people, we gonna rock. Type of. That's how I grew up. So I would say those things to describe me. I'm passionate, and I can be giving, sometimes to a fault, yeah. So I think that's what comes to mind for me when I say like, who are you? Those are the questions. So yes. And I can talk only when, like, I'll talk right now and then I won't talk for the rest of the day. But, back to the Triggered Project, one-man show called Triggered Life. We're talking and telling my story. But also, I play another character that represents for brothers who can't speak and haven't spoken. Within that is, a trauma-informed, holistic grounding and talk back that's led by Roxanne Mascoll, MS, MSW, LI, CSW, who leads that. We created a motion picture live stage hybrid version with the great John Alawalia Dekoje. I gotta always make sure that I say his name because he is an incredible creator and is able to take thoughts and visually has been able to help create this incredible piece where people get to see in my mind, and also the other character's mind of what happens when you get triggered, to talk about things and be triggered and feel everything. So we're able to take that and we flipped it and we filmed it and now it's a film. So really excited about that. And then I have the podcast, Living a Triggered Life podcast, which is with Roxanne, which is like the next part of it is we've been in this long-term relationship and how do we figure it out? Trauma histories, me as a survivor, like everything. Like we don't necessarily hold back in a lot of ways. And that's been an incredible journey for us. So, listen to that, start from 1 and come all the way through. We have a live next month at Museum of Science. We haven't made the announcement with whom we're talking to yet, or if not, we're just going to be me and her. But we're going to get in it. So we have that, and then we have the Inner Monologue Sneaker Art Project and other workshops and stuff we do with young people and also older folks. Being a sneakerhead, understanding that my fetish or whatever is related to my trauma. How a gym teacher gave me a pair of shoes on one of my worst days, and somehow I put on the shoes and felt different and powerful. And we were playing soccer that day, and I had like I was killing them on that day, and I was, oh my God, like it's the shoes. So I wanted to, how can I create opportunities for people to be able to share what they haven't shared before, to help redefine their narrative, and use sneakers.
Yeah.
How can we do that? And so leading people through creating monologues about manhood, about redefining manhood, which is really big. Mental health, some stuff with, what's going on today around war, around, January 6th, around some of the hate stuff that's been going on that, started with kind of Black Lives Matter, and also some of the stuff with Asian Americans or whatever, or just in general, the society of hate that's out here. And 3 words to define them, and we start writing them on shoes. So, that's the work in a lot of ways. 3 different entities that stand by themselves under the Triggered Project, and it's a blessing to do the work. It's a lot, but that's all I got.
I'm sitting here like pausing because it is so much in a good way. Like there's so much goodness packed into you, and thinking about how even with the Triggered Project and how you were talking about with the project with, taking the sneakers, defining them, the sneaker project with the 3 words and different things, and finding that like strength in that, and how you got it out of one of your worst days and out of a moment of trauma for you. Yeah. But yet and still finding like the power that's inside of you. And so even though the shoes became like a catalyst, so even though there was a trigger, the shoes became a catalyst to pull out more of the goodness that is in you and not let the trauma overshadow everything of who you are. And so can you talk a little bit about even with like the Trigger Project, of how learning how you're able to take the trauma but turn it into something that helps continue to power who you are. So like not letting it become a victimizing thing, but really helping continue to be like a fuel. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. I think I understand. I think in a lot of ways, understanding that it's bigger than me, that I don't necessarily think about it in that way. That's what fuels me, because it's bigger than me, right? 5 out of my 6 favorite cousins all abused on one side. That's one side. It's not talking about the other side. So that kind of fuels me. But I think holding it inside doesn't work for me, right? Once you start finding a voice and you start speaking, like you can't go back. Like you shouldn't go back. It's about to happen, but you shouldn't go back. And I think the privilege of doing the work, like I don't take that for granted, right? There's more to do. right? It's even, I get reminded all the time, even having one of my abusers still try to do things to me and whatever, like, this is continuing to happen. I live a triggered life. Like, that's the reality. But there is power within that, because then I try to use tools to have a choice to do something different, right? And I take it one day at a time, and sometimes I'm not at my best. But I'm in the fight, right? And there's so many of the people that are in the fight with me and are into the fight that didn't get the opportunity to work with a therapist or whatever, who used art in so many different ways to help me. And so it wouldn't let me let the abuse define me, right? Or the fear or whatever else it brings with it. Like, there was no way. Like, we talked about it, and yes, but it was everything else that we talked about, right? He even said, like, yes, you one of your abusers, yes, they abuse you, but it's really everything else they did. And I think knowing also that I'm the change agent, right? On my father's side, I can see the collateral damage of something that happened, but I don't know what it is, but I can see the effects on a lot of the men in my family. On my mom's side, she was abused. And it was happening with other folks in the family and things like that. And so I think I understand in the back of my mind that I'm speaking for my mom, who didn't have the opportunity, even though she wanted to be the change agent. And I saw how it overtook her. And now at certain times she made choices off of that, and I speak for her. I speak for my ancestors who couldn't speak. And that's important to me, to do that. And it's hard. It's really difficult to do at times, but like, God has put this on my plate for a reason, right? I got sick, it was like, shingles and whatever, I was on the fast track, just, confused about love. I was traveling around the country, promoting this movie. I was you could say I was just about to pop, and then I get sick and everything stops and I get slowed down, and then I get exposed to this work, and now I'm working in a different way. I'm still doing everything that I was going to do, but there's a reason why, and I embrace it, and I embrace it as much as I can. And I just think not thinking about it, like, okay, like now it's a superpower or any, like, it's not a thought for me, because I just understand that I'm speaking for folks in my family and in general that just haven't spoken. Not the fact that they couldn't speak, right? People always say all the time, like, why do people stay in relationships? Why didn't they say something? Sometimes they just can't. The hardest thing to do is to be able to tell yourself the truth. Never mind say it to anybody else. So if it's sometimes that difficult that we can't say it out loud, that we can't even whisper the truth to ourselves. So I guess that's my answer.
Thank you. Like 100% thank you for your answer and for sharing. I think we could just sit in this for just one moment. Just taking a second. Because I want to honor what you said and not really rush to the next thing. Especially thinking about how you said being that voice and fighting for those who couldn't. That's important. Because there's so many people who feel that they can't and who feel that they've been silenced. And to be that change agent is big. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think, and I'm still trying to be silenced. People are still trying to silence me and silence this work as we speak, and disempower the work and exploit the work in so many ways. And it is, there's just so many of us in general that feel silenced. And we internalize so much. And just because I'm doing this work, like I've said before, I've said it in places, that doesn't mean that people aren't still trying to hurt me.
Yeah.
Because they are. And making choices to try to continue to hurt me and to gaslight me. And that's still difficult. Mm-hmm. Even within telling my truth and telling the truth and speaking the truth and helping other folks. Folks still try to use what we've shared against even me and even against Roxanne.
Before we went live, we were talking a little bit about, we ended up talking about the slap, and everybody already knows what that means when you say the slap now. But even you saying that, it made me think of the way the narrative is now coming out and how you can see the moments of using people's triggers or using their story against them. And how even with everything that was going on, using it against, and I've personally witnessed that a lot amongst, unfortunately, our brothers, and it happening more so amongst our brothers than anyone else. I don't know if you wanted to, or if you had any other thoughts about it, but I know that for me, that is something that I've noticed that. Actually, I'll change the question. I have a question on that. So, I believe that we as women of color have to be support for our brothers of color. And when we see things like this happening, when we see people trying to gaslight our brothers, when we see people trying to, discredit anything that they can do and all these different things, what would you say for us, what your suggestions would be? Because I know there's always a lot of narrative about, don't mansplain and we don't want mansplaining, but I think that it can be flipped the other way around as well. And so I would never want to speak, this is me speaking for myself, do something that I may think that I'm helping out my brother, but I am now hurting him. And so what would you say to that?
What I would say is that looking at how we learns manhood is everything. It's one of the questions that I've been asking young people and whatever through the project, but that may dictate how we want someone to show up for us or not show up for us, right? Because even if we look at that situation, there are many different ways to show up for your partner. But 9 times out of 10, your partner should be involved in what decisions. Right? That's a discussion. that is a discussion in so many ways. And, and I talk about this on the podcast, Roxanne being from the South Bronx and whatever, that she can be assertive at times. And, somebody pushed us, we're drunk, whatever, and she took off her earrings and was ready to go. And I was like, nah, boo, okay, I'm good. Like, I got it. We had that discussion.
Yeah.
And there were certain times, like, I knew that I needed to check in with her about how she wanted me to show up for her. And we had to have that discussion. Because she had no problem stepping up to someone of the opposite sex without a problem. Like, that was never an issue. If someone wanted to take a step towards her, then I would be there and support that. So I think we have to understand, both folks, us as men, have to redefine what that means in terms of what manhood means and whatever. And then that's a discussion with who we want to show up for us. And it goes both ways. I think that's important because like you said, sometimes we're not sure. And it could be, depending on, from male to male, it might be different too. Like, it's a really difficult thing, but I think we all have to do that. Regardless of what we've learned, regardless of what we taught, we all have the opportunity at some point to make our own decision with where we're going to go and what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Right? I try to take the best of my parents and keep moving. I try to take the best of the vision teachings that I've gotten, and I take the best of that. But the other part, I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Regardless, and me being a survivor or whatever, I had to redefine what that looks like. Also, what does that mean in terms of my relationship, right, with Roxanne? That also means, how does she learn about manhood and whatever? That's a discussion that we have to have, because then we know how to show up for each other.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes we make an assumption and be kind of wrong about it and then have to deal with that, right? And have that discussion. So it's a discussion of how we show up. And it can be different with different folks. There's always, and of course, this situation, it's difficult. It's difficult. And Rox and I are going to do a special episode on it because there's so much there. But it's more for us, it's more about how do you show up for the partner and what's that discussion, right? And I also understand what it's like to say I'm defending Roxanne from a not healthy place.
Yeah.
Which means they had nothing to do with her. Had nothing to do with her.
Yep.
Had to do something that my hurt little boy was trying to work out. Right? And then there's times when, then from a healthy place, she was involved and I spoke. I was like, boo, I'm going to speak on this one. Is that okay? All right, cool. You come in and slide in and whatever, and we'll slide back and forth as we need to. So I think that's important to talk about. That's incredibly important, that there's a discussion of how we show up. But listening, that often a lot of times can give us the opportunity to learn on how to do it. And it may be different. Right? I could say, I would say, listen, number one, most definitely, listen. Have a conversation that's possible. And it's hard with the media. It's hard with a lot of it because we don't know what's authentic and what's not in terms of some of the stars and whatever. We have no idea. We do understand that in the Smith family, they have exploited and have made money off of things in the way that the Kardashians have and different things. And that's more business than anything else. However, now that it's gotten really sticky, we don't know what to believe.
Yep.
And yes, there's some trauma that's there. I would say that's there's more that he hasn't talked about and everything else. But there was definitely is there an opportunity for folks to be 100% authentic and leave the fame behind? Mm-hmm. That's the question. really the question, not snippets, like it is what it is. People do whatever they do. Whatever folks do in their household is what they do in their household. That's not for me to necessarily judge. It's not for any of us to really judge, even though we live in this climate. But saying that also makes me think about the pressure of the last name and all this stuff that's been built up. The real power is, can you leave it all behind and live out loud in terms of what the actual truth is and move on and not care.
Yeah.
Like, that is the power. That's really the only next move, to be honest with you. That's really just the only move right now is, and I look at the athletes, the sister that had, that's having some mental issues, gymnastics, like all of that stuff, like that was difficult, but she stood in it. And she's standing in it now and has a commercial that's like, we need to pause.
Yes.
Like, she's standing in that truth. It's not about the fame, so to speak. Yeah, she's been able to flip it in some ways, but is that what is going to happen, with Will? Because that's really the next step is 100% authenticity, and then let the chips fall where they're going to fall, But I'm just not sure if that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
You did. Yes, you did. Oh, speaking of standing in truth, so you actually led to a great point. Speaking of standing in truth and being 100% authentically you, if there was some way we wake up tomorrow and everybody has found the serum to live 100% their authentic truth, what would that look like in your eyes?
Something I've never thought about. And sometimes it's interesting because sometimes I'm like, those are like hokey questions. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's some, you know what I'm saying? That's some Harvard, Cambridge question. Like, and it's like, what if it's the perfect world? And what would that perfect world look like? No, thank you for asking. Thank you for asking that. It would look the same as it does in a lot of ways, because we wouldn't know. If someone's living their authentic truth, we don't really know that, so to speak, unless we have a conversation. We won't know. The only way people know that I'm trying to continue to be authentic is because I talk about it. If I don't talk about it, people don't necessarily know. Some people don't even know still that I'm doing this work with the Triggered Project or whatever. Like, are you still acting? Or people don't know really what I'm doing. They're like, so how's your little program? Or they'll ask about one aspect of it, or they'll be like, man, I really appreciate your work. And then I talk to them and I know they don't know they don't have no idea actually what I actually am doing and what we're doing at all. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to show, I don't know if it would show up in that way. But as we have interactions, it's probably more ownership of the action, right? Like if someone has an emotional outburst, to be like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry, that had nothing to do with you. I'm sorry I was rude to you. That had nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? Or people will also sit in truth in terms of like, I really just don't like you for whatever reason too. Like, I think sometimes that's hard, right? That's one thing we learned with the Trump era and whatever. There's more folks that don't look like us who are standing in their truth. Mm-hmm. Like happens in the South. Like people stand in their truth, yeah. Right? This basic, but people are basic though. People say good morning to you in a humanity type of way, but like, look, you understand out of store. Like that's not, we ain't doing that. it's so. That's kind of what I like we see it in some ways already.
Yeah.
When people really stand in hatred, they're being their authentic self. That is, we're seeing some of it, but there's another, I guess, a humanistic view of it that would come out in some of the interactions, or people say, how are you today? And people actually really say exactly where they are and not, or how was school today? I say to kids all the time, like, how was school? It was fine. You don't have to lie.
Yeah.
Like when I ask you a question, I actually really want to know. Like, don't just give me what you think someone wants you. Don't give me what you think I want to hear.
Yeah.
What I want to hear actually is the truth. And people are really taken back by that. Like, what? Like, no, you don't have to lie. You have to give me the company line. You could be like, you know what? Today wasn't that great. It was terrible, actually. And it'd be like, well, let's acknowledge that. Right? And let's say, okay, that's all right to say today wasn't a great day. Because it was just, that's what it was. However, let's try to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start out and say, good morning, love.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what I'm thankful for today. Like that's, that outlook, I think is important.
Yes. I like it. And I love that it's not, even though the question, like you said, be seeming like them Harvard questions, to break it down, because I feel sometimes we make things too complicated. And so even like how you were saying, like the basic, like it wouldn't really look any different. I'm pretty sure there's probably somebody listening to this that did not expect that answer. But it's like Lauryn Hill said, it could all be so simple.
No, because here's the thing, right? So that question, and people feel like they have to make up some crazy question or whatever. See, the thing about it is I'm around a lot of people who try to do all, that stuff, and I'm like, nah. Like there's all these hats, there's all these hats and all these things that we're supposed to wear. And like, it's just really not authentic. It's just not. You know what I'm saying? Am I a better person if I pledged or didn't pledge? Does that make me a better person? I have to question it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to really question it, because some people like be wearing these jackets and all this other stuff, and it's like, some people lead with it and some people don't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And whatever else. And it's like, because we weren't at school with them, they try to paint a different picture of what it was like on campus. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's always the thing with me. I'm like, I only need to talk to you for a couple of minutes and I understand exactly what the situation is or how things were.
Yeah, exactly. How they really were.
That's okay. And that's okay. That's okay. But, leading with our humanity, that's just people's choices. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel any status, never felt status as being an actor. Don't feel any status about doing this work. Don't feel any status in the fact that I've been in a relationship for so long, or some of the things that I've been blessed with or whatever. There's no status in that for me. And I'm just thankful. You know what I mean? Like, I'll chop it up with, I'm not above anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times with some of the insecurities that we have, that we lean on things and act like we're above stuff. And we're not. Because, for me, I'm learning and relearning every single day. So there's no reason for me not to be humble. Sometimes it's to a fault, but there's no reason, because I'm a work in progress. Still, even with this work and everything else. And I think that's something that we just don't remind ourselves of enough, and then hide behind these other things. at the end of the day, whether you were, as I said before, who cares where you end up on the aisle? Are you a good person? And will you help people? And can you go to sleep at night knowing that you're being, that you're a good person? That's all that's at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? And how you deal with the man upstairs and whatever. But like, that's all that really matters.
Yeah. That's true. On my last week episode, when I was talking about my thankfulness, I was talking about support and how I'm thankful for my support, but I'm thankful that I could be a support as well. And there was an activity we would do at the end of like youth night where when we would pray out, instead of holding hands, we dap up. And so on one side, someone's hand would be on top. And on the other side, your hand, while on this end you're holding someone up, on this one, somebody else is holding you up. Right. And that idea of like, that's what humanity is. We all have a place where this week, I might need you to be like, Ariel, you're slipping. Yeah. Like, what's up? How are you doing? I can see that things aren't good. What's up? What do you need? Right. And on the other week, it might be like, you good, fam? Like, how? Because that's what it's about. Right.
Yeah. No, there's always that duality that happens. As we support other folks, we need support.
Yes.
Like that's well said. That's a good way to talk about it. Dap up.
Yeah. And so with that, I'm asked this question. How can my supporters support you? Where can they reach out, learn more on their own, follow along? Where can they support you?
I'm at Keith Maskel, Mascoll on everything. If people want to follow us. Website is www.triggered1thenumber.com. And listen to the podcast. Most definitely, Living a Triggered Life podcast on all platforms would be great. Come to the live at the Museum of Science. The tickets are free, which doesn't happen because people have partnership and want to make sure. So we do talk about mental health and things that is accessible. Come check us out for sure. And I guess follow us. Probably the big thing too is probably to follow us on social media. I mean, we do some social media stuff. We definitely need some more followers. Just some people that don't take it seriously. But that would be great. And so you can find all of that stuff on our website for sure. And comment. You can always reach out to me. I'm easy to find. Just Keith at keithmaskel.com if you want to, link up or anything or donate or whatever. But the support for listening, giving responses, like that's huge. We have a lot of people that don't respond. I don't know why. Maybe because they're survivors. They don't want to say anything. But that feedback's important for us. And come out to the live next month. Like let's pack the place with Black and brown people in the Museum of Science, like we did last time. Let's show the presence. Let's show how important it is for us to give us this little podcast that could the opportunity to partner with a major institution that we are not in very much, and how they need to continue to support us, and be responsible for the harm that has happened in the past, and to acknowledge that and try to move forward in having them continue to be responsible with great programming and following that up. Like that would just, that would be really cool.
Nice. Thank you. I'm going to let you all know. I went to the last live. And if you were not there, you missed a great time. So I'm letting you know you want to be there next month. You want to be there. You want to be there. You want to be there. I'm going to make sure I do my part as well to continue to support. And once the information comes out about everything, sharing that.
Oh, I'm going to jump in. May 12th, 7 o'clock at the Museum of Science. We'll probably have Mo Wilkie back on the ones and twos. We're trying to we're taking over the Blue Wing. And we need to pack it. We need to pack this place. We need to make a statement how important mental health is to our community, supporting survivors speaking their truth, supporting not just Black men, but Black women and folks who identify in that way, to tell our truth in an institution that has been lying to people about our contributions. You know what I'm saying? Like, so thank you for coming out too. Thank you for coming out and supporting us last time. You know, it was really great talking to Jeannie Mai and stuff. And I feel like people across the country have no idea that that's happened, and it's just kind of a weird thing that's happened. But such a blessing. And there's 99% of all these podcasts that are supposed to be big they do not have a partnership with a major institution like we do, which is just a huge blessing. We do not take that for granted. Big shout out to James Monroe, who's been pushing if you've looked at all the programming for the Museum of Science this year, it has been top notch because of the work of James Monroe, making sure that everybody is represented in the way that they should and treated with respect. And I think that's big. So big shout out to James Monroe.
Nice. Even though I could have you for a lot longer, we could go for a lot longer, I want to respect your time, because that is one thing that I'm big on. I like respecting people's time. So I'm going to let you go. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and be a part of the podcast here, even though you have your own. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Again, people, please check out everything that Keith and Roxanne are doing. And like I said before, I'm going to try to get Roxanne on here as well soon so that she can share her own story and her part. So
brilliance. Just brilliance. I'm just brilliance.
Yes. I love her. Like, I really do. I learn so much. I continue every time I see her and talk to her. It's inspiring to me. So as I said before, you guys are awesome. You inspire me to continue to do great things. You inspire me to keep going with this podcast, everything. So thank you so much. All my listeners, I'll be back again next week with another episode. Until then, if you want to continue the conversation, if you want to talk, you can reach me at Ariel Chanel on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also comment on Keith's page, talk to him directly. Like he said, he gave you all of his information. And let's continue the conversation of being our authentic selves, living out our truth, standing in truth. It's so important, because that's the first step to seeing the good, the wonderful, the lovely, if we learn to love and stand in who we are. So, talk to you all later. Bye. That's all for now on Good Morning Love. You can continue talking with me on Instagram at Ariel Chanel or on Facebook at Ariel Chanel Music. Let me know what you think. And until next time, remember, always wake up with love.